Hi, welcome to the CosTech podcast. This month we're going to be looking at digital smile design. It's something that all of you requested that you'd like more information about the new changes that we've put in place, how the system works, what to ask for, of course the pricing, and also all the other options that we have available and that you have available for your treatment planning. So what we'll be doing is having a quick look today essentially at what is diagnostic modeling, and then what are the benefits of digital smile design. A lot of you are already doing a lot of diagnostic wax-ups, but how can it actually enhance the treatment planning that you're doing as well as the service that you give to your patients? We'll go through the pricing, the other planning options that you have available at your disposal, and also we'll touch on the smile design package. This is a massive topic on its own and will actually be subsequently another podcast that we'll do at another later date, but I'll just give you a quick introduction about that. So why do we use diagnostic modeling? It's essentially for treatment planning. So we can actually bring together yourself, the dentist, with the patient and the technician. It becomes a universal tool that it's basically one hymn book that we're all singing from. The main thing that we want to do is before we start any treatment, before any treatment commences, we want to make sure that if the patient has a certain amount of aesthetics in their mind of what they want to achieve, we want to make sure that the functionality one isn't compromised, two, if it can be enhanced, even better. And also it actually brings the patient into the loop of the actual design process. It helps massively with informed consent, because the worst thing that can happen is, as you know, when you go through the full treatment plan and at the end of it the patient isn't happy. This is a way that we can actually say, look, this is what you're going to have at the end of the case. And if they say anything, we'll be like, look, this is what we agreed on before. It's also very good for very precise temporaries. When you're using diagnostic modeling and you use a putty index to just use your temporaries, it gives the patient an idea of what their final smile will be like. So if there is anything wrong, now's a good time to actually change something before we do the final restorations. Also, it becomes the guide for the lab. As soon as we've done the whole diagnostic tool, we will be using that from start to finish as our reference. And just also when we're using now with the digital side, what we actually do at the diagnostic side actually becomes the final restoration at the same time. So a lot of people have been asking, why did we stop doing the traditional diagnostic wax up? It's been a staple for many, many years. But basically, with the invention of a lot of the digital technologies that we have, we actually found that it became very analog and subjective when we were doing it by hand. Technicians did it a lot by feel, with articulators and articulating paper just to check excursions and things. But again, it wasn't as accurate as we would like it to be. It became a very manual and expensive process. A technician at the bench doesn't make anything on diagnostic wax-ups because of the amount of time they're spending. They'd rather be building up crowns. So we thought, well, why are we using the analog way when we have so many digital solutions at our disposal? The other thing we found is majority of the returns that we actually came was especially when we're sending things through post, the wax was brittle and it was just chipping off. So before you even got to show it to the patient, the wax was already chipping off, which was never a good look. So we started bringing in the digital side, and there's the software that we use has some amazing tools that we can use, and essentially it becomes very predictable and accurate because the CAD software is working within microns. We can say, okay, if I want to bring back the tooth at like 0.2 mils, it will do it exactly 0.2 mils, whereas before we were using depth gauges through wax to work out how much thickness we were actually working on using calipers. But with this way, we can say, okay, we're going to go with potentially a zirconia crown. We know that we can't go less than 0.3 mils, so the computer already has that parameter set in. If you say to us, okay, I want to be minimally invasive on this area here, I don't want to take anything more than half a mil off, we can actually put that into the system. It becomes a very efficient workflow. When we were doing things by hand, it took a very, very skilled technician to actually do the full diagnostic wax up. With this efficient workflow, it makes it very easy that we can actually start creating the mock-up, and if it's not right, it's very easy to adjust and change as we need to do it. It also enhances the communication and the collaboration. Because it's digital, we can actually send you the files and say, look, before we go any further, have a look at this. Is this something that you like? You can even send it to the patient. We use Exocad, have an amazing web view system where it's just a link. We send you the link and you can see the file. It's all 3D. You can see the underlying teeth. You can see the restorations over the top. And you can give us feedback and say, actually, I'm not liking the way that this tooth is or this way. And so we can actually make very quick changes. Whereas before, if we had a diagnostic wax up, we had to send it to you. You then had to say, oh, no, you'd carve a bit or add a bit, send it back to us. If it made it back in one piece, brilliant. But then the to and fro, we just lost too much time. So the other thing I mentioned earlier was with the making everything minimally invasive, we want to preserve as much of the patient's natural dentition as possible. And this way we can actually work with a lot more fine parameters to enhance what we actually have. Also cheaper and better value. It's cheaper because one, the software takes a lot of the guesswork out. It takes a lot of the laborious time out. Also, it's better value in the fact that you have more options. We can have one design which we use, and you would be like, okay, I need temporaries on it. I want to do direct composites over the top, prep guides. We can even do test run smiles. So we can do temporary acrylic, so the patient can do a test drive before they actually commit to a final restoration. So all of these things make the smile design on the digital side a lot more better value for money, and also a lot more predictable. When the patient says, yes, that's exactly what I want, that is what they will actually have at the end of the treatment. So with the digital smile design, this is the sort of idea of what happens on the CAD system. So we can actually take like the perfect arch and we manipulate it to fit the patient's arch as much as possible. This just gives us our first point, just to say, okay, this is an exact smile. We've got various different tooth libraries that we can actually call on that matches their patient's like existing dentition. And what we can do is we can say, okay, well, this is the ideal situation. This is the ideal aesthetics that the patient would possibly like. And then we look at, okay, is anything compromised on the functionality side? How can we enhance the functionality? If we need to raise the OVD and you tell us, okay, raise the bite by 2 mils, right, let's do that first. And then we can actually go through various different scenarios before actually coming to collaboratively one design. Again, with the exact parameters of the tooth reduction, again, where we're trying to be as minimally as invasive as possible, if a patient's got very crooked teeth and like, okay, the patient just wants a perfect arch, we can say, if you're going to go for veneers or something, this is how much we can actually guide you and say, you're going to need to take X amount of tooth material off. Then you might look at it and go, no, that's going to go too deep. Let's actually think of something else, and let's go down the aligner route and do aligners first, and then go for direct bonding or veneers. So with this, we can actually look at how to achieve what the patient wants, which majoritively is the aesthetics, but making sure that the actual bite isn't going to compromise anything, and also it's not going to compromise their bite as a whole. With the CAD system, we can actually take, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant if you're using an intraoral scanner and you take the bite, we can very, very accurately recreate the actual bite and the excursions. So while we're designing it, we can recreate that on the system, and then it can tell us if it's going to be damaging to any sort of tooth material that we'll be doing, or if we say, for example, we're going for Emax and it's going too thin, the system will actually put up a warning so we can actually work around it and come up with other solutions. So with the pricing structure, it looks very complicated. It's not actually as complicated as I think. It's just that the first unit, so is always going to be £28. That basically covers us for the first unit. Each subsequent unit is just charged at £15 each. Because previously when we're doing diagnostic wax ups, you would charge like £20 per unit, and so if you're doing 10 of them, it was like £200 because the amount of time the technician had to spend on each one was pretty much the same. Now we actually get the ability to work on whole arches rather than just making each individual tooth individually. When you send through a case, what we do is the best way, intraoral scan by far is the best way you can actually send a case through. But if you are using analog impressions, that's absolutely perfect too. We take that, get it on the system, and then, as you saw on the slide earlier, we'll actually put the perfect arch over it and go through our standard smile design principles of golden proportions. If we have an idea of where lip lines are, that's even better. Patient photos, more information you can give us is even better. So when you send it through, you'll get one model back which has got the patient's current dentition in. Then you'll have one which has got the diagnostic design. If before we actually go to print, if you say, look, can you send us the file, which will be the web view, so you can have a look at it. We'll send that through first before we print the model. We can go through like as many changes as you need, and then we'll actually print the final model. This diagnostic model will actually help the patient see what's going to happen. You can explain where you're going to need to potentially prep teeth, or if going for aligners, where you're going to be making adjustments. We will, as standard, also create a putty index. We're aware that a lot of the time patients are having restorative work, so they're going to need temporaries. So we provide putty index, which can be used for temporaries. That's all included. The other optional extras that we have, we still do the classic wax up. So this is charged as a surplus on top of the previous charges that I just explained. So this is if you want to. We still have many clients who they say no, the final carving, they want to do it themselves, they want to check it. You then send it back to us. We'll then rescan that and then supplement that onto our file. We can also, if you didn't want the models and you say, no, I just want the STLs and you want to print it in-house, we can just provide you with the STL files. Prep guide models are absolutely amazing. If you say, right, I want to have a veneer case, but I don't want to over prep, you want to avoid it as much as possible, is to, with the prep guide model, you layer it straight on and it gives you a guide of how much material to take off. And knowing as long as you've taken that much off, whatever was decided at the diagnostic design stage, we know that is 100% accurate, that we can actually achieve that. We can also provide laminates, and this is if you're doing direct bonding. So we can do it, we've got two ways to do it. If you have to let us know which system you're using, for example, if you're using the flowable composite and you want holes in the front of the laminate, let us know, we can do that. The other option that we do, which is becoming a lot more popular, is we actually provide two laminates, which basically does the alternate teeth. So you do the first one, which will basically block out every other tooth with enough room to put the flowable composite in. Once that's in, you then put in the second one. Because we already know what the first one has done, the second one then fills in the other alternate teeth. Gives very good separation, a very good end result. The full smile design is, like I said, it's a massive topic within itself. Generally, we use this for very large, especially bite rehabilitation cases. People, heavy bruxis, who we're trying to rehabilitate the bite, if we're trying to increase the bite, and it's a lot more involved. Again, functional mock-ups, which we do as a standard design, because at the end of the day, it's the smile line that the patient is really wanting. And but we will also do full occlusal rebalancing. So this is where we work with you to say, okay, how much vertical dimensions do we have to work with? what is the plan. If you say, okay, we're going to build up the posteriors to give ourselves a bit more room, and we can first of all do that as the first stage, and then the second stage will then come through to do the aesthetic side of things. It's also, we provide full case planning, so we'll have a look at it and say, okay, here's a few options. If it's a case of we're doing a combination of using aligners, direct bonding, or aligners mixed with direct composite build-ups. Sometimes it comes that there might be dentures or implants involved. Before the patient actually starts that journey, the full Smile design package will actually look at all of our options, and what will happen is a technician will call you up and say, okay, what's the plan with this? Okay, these are what we can do. And sometimes you might come up with 1, 2, maybe 3 different options of what we can actually achieve. And also you get the pre-op models, so also the patient can see exactly where they're starting and where they'll be finishing. So this is an idea of like what happens on the system. So when we have the case, we can actually provide the mock-up on the right hand side, and the patient, you show it to the patient, they'll say, okay, that's exactly what we want, or actually, can you make this change, again. The more input you give us, the better, because the patient will be happier with the final result. Here's an example of where we went with veneers, again using exactly the same system. So we were building up, I think it was minimal preps as much as we could, and finishing off with Emacs. And this case was a direct bonding case, so the patient wasn't happy with the bleaching and just wanted the gaps filled. So that's basically how it is. The team that you're going to be working with, sorry, I was expecting a different slide there. This is the team that you're going to be working with. So Jigger, our head of digital, a lot of people you would have already spoken with Jigger with your case planning. He'll actually be heading up the team, and you'll also be working with Charlie and Johnny, who will be working on the CAD systems, doing the designing, and if you want small alterations, they're the technicians that you will actually be in touch with. So that's a very quick introduction to how the system works for digital Smile design. Like I said, we'll be going to a lot more, so we'll get a lot more technical with some case plans that we're actually in the process of recording, along with patient feedback, so you can get an idea of what you can expect on for your patients moving forward, what you know that you can provide. The main thing to take home from this is when you're seeing a patient and it's not always, the patient isn't always sure if they want to go ahead with this. Sometimes they need a convincer, they need to actually see it rather than just thinking about it on principle. This way you can actually say, this is your situation now, this is where we can actually get you to. And the patient can see, okay, this is where my smile is going to be at the end of the treatment. We have got options as well, where you can actually send in the patient's photos and we can superimpose the smile that we designed together. We'll take that, put it back into the photo so the patient can say, okay, that's what it will look like. We have something exciting coming out, so watch this space. So if you made it to the end of this, you get a lucky first glance of what's happening. We have a new AI system that will be launched later on this year, where basically if you take the patient's photos, side profile, we can then superimpose it, and as the patient, beautiful AI, just takes it with the new smile and mimics the patient's talking, smiling, so they can see the lip line, they can see the smile lines, so they get a better idea of exactly how they will look. That becomes very motivational for the patients, especially when they're looking to say, okay, I'm going to be investing my hard-earned money on this. You want to make sure that they're convinced before you even start, and have the confidence that when we start with this, we will then be able to actually take it all the way to completion and have a very happy patient. So if you've got any more questions about anything on this, make sure that you email through to info@costech.co.uk. And also, if there's anything else that you want to see on any of these podcasts, any other products or services that we provide that you would like more information about, We'll keep these going as much as possible. Whichever one gets the most amount of votes will go to the top, and we'll keep putting them out as much as we can. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been absolutely a pleasure to be with you, and we'll chat again soon. Take care.